Hey, so today I am solo, and this is the fifth Friday of January, so we don't have our regular routine themes. So I've been thinking and trying to come up with something different to talk about. And so I decided to ask ChatGPT, and I asked Chat, what are the top five questions that uh, somebody thinking about buying or selling a house is asking? And Chat gave me the answers, of course. So the first one is, how's the market? We do a market report. The data comes out tomorrow. So our market reports will be out in the next couple of days, going through our local area. I usually do the entire area of our multiple listing service, which is kind of all of Chicagoland and pretty far west, a little bit south, north to Wisconsin. And then we each do our local markets. So sometimes just the city we're in, sometimes we drill down to neighborhoods. And if there's ever anything that you specifically want to know about your specific neighborhood or your specific house, just shoot us a message. We're happy to look into that for you. And the market overall seems to be starting out for an early spring. We don't really know where it's going from here because there are so many questions. And when there's a lot of questions, a lot of people tend not to do anything. But that's been going on for a long time. So there are people who are going to have to buy and sell regardless of the height of their confidence. um, and so that's what we're here to guide people through and hopefully figure out what is the best option out of many. So the market also in every one of those reports is going to be somewhat different. So we'll see some trends. We always do that carry through. But for the most part, in Illinois, we still have very low inventory. Despite, all the headlines about people moving out of Illinois, there's not extra houses. And we have a fair amount of building going on around us, but it's still not enough. It's not enough to keep up with the number of households that have been created by a long shot. There are some areas of the country that are seeing different patterns. Most of them have had a lot more building than we've had. So that tends to be the answer for the difference. And then, of course, there's weather related issues that are going on in some parts of the country. There's affordability. There's affordability everywhere, but the affordability is greater in some areas than others. But we'll drill down on that market report. We will drop the link in this post so you can get straight to our market reports and see what we have to say coming up. How much is my house worth? So this is a big question, but I think it's a question that people don't really understand the answers that they get. If you're looking up how much your house is worth online, that's one specific math answer that might have nothing to do with, or very little to do with, how much somebody will actually pay for your house. And that's really what you want to know, right? Like, what could I sell it for? If I put it on the market, what would I have to spend on it to get it in shape? And then what would it be worth after? So I'm going to come back to this one because I think that's a big thing. And I want to hit on a couple of points. How do I get pre-approved for a mortgage? That's a really simple process, but don't do it on your own. Once you hire your realtor, you're going to want to find out who is on their team of lenders, who they trust, who have a good track record, who other agents trust. If you are trying to buy a house and you walk in with a pre-approval from a lender who has a terrible reputation because they don't do their job and don't follow through, and there are plenty of those, you probably won't even get your offers accepted. That happens quite often. So that's one of those places where you really want to confer with your realtor. We have trusted lenders that we use who have come through again and again and again. And that is what matters. You can always look at price. You want to do that ahead of time before you hire somebody, before you go very far into the process, and really before they do a whole lot of work. You can look at their fees, and you can compare their rates, but you need to compare their rates really at the same moment on the same day, because rates change. Rates change until you lock them. And so if you're asking a lender on Monday what their rates are, and then you're asking a different lender on Thursday what their rates are, that first lender's rates might be completely different as well. So just know that the rate is, and the rates are usually, kind of within spitting distance of one another. The fees are what can vary quite a bit. And I mean, rates can vary too. So you can check into it. Just make sure you're comparing apples to apples. And then the most important thing is not the person who is going to quote you the lowest rates and fees, but the person who's actually going to get you to the closing table. And you'd be surprised how often that doesn't happen. What are the costs of buying or selling? I think we should probably do a whole show just on this in the future. There are a lot. There's a lot that people forget about or they don't consider. One big one is when you're selling your house, we in Illinois pay our taxes in arrears. So whatever tax bill you're getting is for the previous year. So right now it's 2025. The tax bills that come out in the spring are for the spring of 24. If you're selling your house in 25, you lived there in the spring of 24. You also lived there in the fall of 24. And you very well might live there in the spring of 25. And so when you sell, all of those taxes are due. Those are not the buyer's responsibility. They're yours. So you're going to hand over a lump sum. Typically that goes into escrow for the buyer's lender to pay, or if the buyer's paying cash, they will hold on to it and make sure those taxes get paid on your behalf, but during the buyer's tenure in the house. That's a big one that people forget about. There's also just a ton of little ones. There's going to be municipal fees. There are transfer taxes. In some places, those are paid by the buyer. In some places, they're paid by the seller. In some places, both. Some places don't have them at all. They vary quite a bit. You will have, if you're selling a condo or a townhome, you'll have a fee to access your documents. Those can be relatively hefty fees. Typically, we see $400 or $500 for that. You will have your agent's fees that you're responsible for. Now, everybody is responsible for negotiating and ensuring the payment of their own agent's fees. Sometimes the buyers will, well, most of the time, the buyers will ask the sellers to pay the agent out of what the buyer's paying them. So some people look at that as the seller paying. I'm not quite sure about that. But that is one of the larger costs that goes into it. You will have an attorney. So there are attorney's fees to pay. There can be title costs to pay. There are fees associated with borrowing money on the buyer side. So you'll have an appraisal fee and you'll have an inspection that you pay for. We can do some estimates and run a show kind of all about that. If you're interested, drop a comment and we'll drill down on that. And then sometimes it just seems like everybody's got their hand out for 25 or 50 or 75 bucks. So there's lots of little fees that you'll see on your closing statement that all go into it. This question is, of course, my favorite answer. It depends. How long will it take to buy or sell a house? It depends. It depends primarily on you, secondarily on the market. So if you're on the buy side and you have very specific wants and needs, and the market is like it is now, where there's very low inventory, it might take quite some time to find the house that fits all of those, that checks all those boxes. We always encourage our buyers to look for a house that could fit those checkboxes, maybe with some modification, rather than waiting for it to show up all already done. About we consider about 85% most of the time. In this market, sometimes buyers really need to look for something that's 75% of what they want. But then those things that fit that 75%, you want to make sure that those are the things that can't change. So you don't want to give up location versus, an ugly bathroom. The ugly bathroom can change, the location won't. So if something about the location is important to you, then that's the thing that you want to hold on to. You're really always going to be faced with a choice on price, condition, and location. And for just about everybody, one of those is going to have to give at some point. If you have a great budget, then you're probably going to be able to pick whatever location you want. But even at some of the, really higher price points, we see that people are going to have to give a little on condition. Almost nobody gets everything they want. So you need to have a really firm discussion with yourself and figure out which ones of those things are you willing to have some wiggle room on. And then we can move pretty quickly. On the sell side, one of the things that you're going to want to talk about when you consult your realtor is what is the average days on market, and how does that realtor position your home to minimize that as much as possible? What do they do to make sure that it sells as quickly as possible? Sometimes sellers are less concerned about how quickly it sells. We often hear, we're willing to wait for the right buyer, or we're willing to wait for the right price. If that was all it took, we would all, just be putting houses on the market and waiting for the right person to come to buy them. But what experience teaches us after selling hundreds of houses is that especially the way it works in today's world, your agent, excuse me, your agent should be working to get your listing in front of as many eyeballs as possible, as fast as possible in the beginning. The reason for this is there are a few things. The main thing is that everybody who's been out looking and rejected all of the other houses on the market is waiting for the right one to come up. So we want them to see yours. They are ready, willing, and able to jump on something immediately and, jump with both feet. Those buyers who are just kind of starting out, typically it might take them a little bit longer to kind of understand the market, to get to the point where they're making a really aggressive offer, to get to the point where they're, very confident that they're making the right decision. Not always, but most of the time that's what we see. The other thing is that the third-party advertising sites that our service feeds your listing to prioritize it by how new it is. So the newest houses on the market get to the top of the pile, and they are the ones that are showing up in email boxes. They're the ones that buyers are seeing as they're flipping through their phones in bed at night. And if your house isn't there anymore, they're not thinking about it anymore. So the longer your house is on the market, typically the lower the price goes. That's why it's so important to price it right in the beginning, and or at least understand the dangers of pricing too high, and that it often will, be shooting yourself in the foot. So I want to go back for just a minute to this question. How much is my house worth? Your house is worth what someone will pay for it, or what a bank will lend if you're looking to refinance. And that's usually also based on what somebody will pay for that. And that is changing all the time. So people like to think that they're, it's sort of like money in the bank, like it's an interest-bearing bank account. We got to this level, and by next month it's going to go up. And I looked at Zillow. I've had people tell me, I looked at Zillow, my house is worth $1,000 more than it was. No, it's not. That's not how it works. So it's a really complicated equation. It is much more art than science. And I know that's frustrating to people who say, but you must be able to tell what it's worth. I can give you a range anytime what it's worth, and it'll be somewhere in there. But anything that happens in the world can change what that answer is. And I get frustrated with my colleagues who sometimes want to do a CMA, comparative market analysis, in August, and then in February they're talking about the same price. It's changed. It's different. It sometimes changes from week to week. It literally changes from day to day if you really look into watching the data and the charts. So we'll go into some of that in our market report, but it's much more important that you find an agent who will examine and interpret that data on a daily, weekly, monthly basis for you as you're preparing to sell your house. So you know what the most up-to-date answer is. You need to understand that it's going to go up and down, even in the best sellers market, and that there's a lot that goes into getting the best price. So find someone, my advice is to find someone who will collaborate with you on that, not someone who will just, say, well, what do you want? What do you want for it? And put that number down and throw it up on the market. That is a really bad way to go. And another thing that we have kind of an inside industry term we use called buying the listing, where an agent will tell you what you want to hear, knowing that once they have you under contract and once you've prepared your house and once you've gone through all of the work of getting that house on the market, they've got you. And when it doesn't sell at the price that you hoped for, they will bring it down to reality and eventually it'll sell. I just think that people are better off knowing up front. So sometimes there's things that you don't really want to hear, like we don't actually know yet, but we will find the best price when it comes to the time. And to me, that's the right answer. So find somebody who will do that with you. And thanks so much. If you have any other questions, drop them in the comments. I am always happy to answer them.